essentially what I figured out is using this technique, you can turn fingering weight yarn into bulky gauge. So you can knit any bulky gauge pattern using this technique with fingering weight yarn. Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer who also likes to make videos here on my YouTube channel, Watch Barbara Knit. Make sure to check in the description notes below the video where you will find links to all of my online shenanigans, including how to get my patterns to knit up for yourself, how to join the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group, where to get my merchandise, and how to support me on Patreon. Today, this video, literally has come together in about a few hours because I know it'll come to a surprise to none of y'all, but I watch a lot of fiber arts creators on TikTok. TikTok's kind of this kind of a new guilty pleasure for me. I do have a TikTok. I don't even know if I can link to it because really I don't do a lot of fibery stuff on it. It's me being, I've made like 4 or 5 videos, but I like watching them. And I came across this one. TikTok decided to show me. I didn't follow this person. I do follow this person now. The name is at Hooked, HOOKEDME. I'm going to show you right here. I doubt my camera can see this very well. It's going to be bright. But what she was discussing is the S method for turning one skein. Me unplugging and plugging my phone made a funny noise. I wonder if that's going to show up. Using a single skein of yarn to essentially knit multiple strands together, as opposed to when you try to double up, having to have multiple skeins that you run together just using one skein. I was like, what is this? What is this magic? How do we do this? So I watched the video and it is literally like, let's see here. It is a 46-second video. So I watched this wonderful artist do it and it was amazing. And I was like, how did that happen? So I was like, I have to figure out, A, can this be used in knitting? Which the answer is yes. And B, what does this do? Because to really make this useful, the idea is when you essentially triple the yarn, what weight change happens there. So she used worsted weight yarn and a big old hook, and she didn't tell us what hook size she was using. And honestly, it wouldn't have really helped me because that doesn't translate in my brain. So what I had to do is I just had to go and I was like, okay, let's start with fingering weight, because you know what? Everybody has a whole lot of fingering weight laying around. And I started off with a size 8 needle and that didn't work. And I'll talk about it. There's a demo coming up. There'll be knitting hands that you'll see and you'll get all the info. But essentially what I figured out is using this technique, you can turn fingering weight yarn into bulky gauge. So you can knit any bulky gauge pattern using this technique with fingering weight yarn. So it's like, yay! How exciting is that? So here comes the demo, and I'll talk to you a little bit more after the demo. I have my ball of fingering weight yarn. Honestly, I don't have the label for it. I'm pretty sure it's some sort of Sweet Georgia, and I'm pretty sure it has silk in it. But what I'm 100% on is that it's fingering weight yarn. I'm going to stick the ball up here. Actually, I'm going to pull some yarn out first. And I'm going to stick the ball up off screen. Now, what is the S part? I'm doing this smaller so you can see the whole thing, but you're definitely going to want to do this with more yarn and make it bigger, and I'll tell you why. So what we got to do is we got to make an S with our yarn. So here's my end. I'm going to pull this out. Let's see, I'm going to try to make it fill my entire screen so you can see it as big as possible. And then we're going to pull this loop out. So here's our S. So we start at the end, one curve, 2 curves, and this goes off to join the ball of yarn, okay? And this part goes to the yarn. Now, we're going to line this up, so now we have 3 strands. You need to make sure that you're going to leave enough to weave in ends. So I'm going to come in at least as much as I want to weave and then some more, because the loop for your slip knot is going to take up more. And this is why I said you're going to want to do this longer, because we only have a small loop here, but so you can see it, that's the way we're doing it. We are going to pinch the yarn to make our slip knot. We're going to wrap around, make an X, and then reach through, grab that working side and pull it through so we have our slip knot. See, and we barely have a loop, and that's because I didn't leave very much. That's why I said we needed longer. Now, we're going to stick our needle in here and pull all 3 of these. So we have our working yarn, our loop, our slip knot. These are our tails. We're going to hold it like this. We have our loop and our working yarn on this side, and we have the loop that made the tail and the end of it on this side. This is enough to weave in. This is enough to start knitting with. Okay, now let's do that again. I'm going to show you again. We're going to pull out our slip knot. I'm going to set my needles to the side. We are going to make our S again. So we're going to start, here's the end of our yarn, loop number 1 of your S, curve number 1 of your S, and then we're going to make our S. See, S is for super. This is a super technique that is just, I mean, complete sorcery. I don't know how this works, but it's fabulous. So we have our S. We're going to put them together, leave enough and then some to weave in on this side. Make your slip knot. If you have a different way of making a slip knot, that's fine. Pull out your loop, reach through, grab your working yarn plus the loop and pull it. Okay, can you see what I'm doing here? So here is the working yarn loop, the tail yarn loop. And then we pull them down like that to make our slip knot. Again, put our needle through here and pull that slip knot to cinch it down around our needle. Now, we're going to hold the yarn in our, I hold it in my left hand. You can totally do this in your right hand. You're going to hold your yarn however you hold it to tension it, and you're holding all 3 strands at the same time. Your tail is here. I tuck my tail back here so I don't accidentally knit with it. And then we are going to insert our needle. Make sure we're going to get it through all 3 strands. Insert from left to right through this front loop. We're knitting, wrap, pull through, and then stick that stitch on the needle. And that's our first stitch. And then we have a loop right here. So I'm going to go ahead and we need to make more yarn. And this is where the magic comes in. So this is our working yarn. This is the loop. We're going to reach through the loop and grab the single strand, that working yarn, and we're going to pull it. And we're going to pull it and pull it and pull it and keep on pulling it until you have as long as you want. We're going to have to do this over and over again. And here you can see. See how we've got 3 strands here? So then I'm going to grab those with my fingers, and there, see, we're working with 3 strands at a time. So I'm going to do a cable cast on, so I'm going to insert my needle underneath
the left-hand needle in between the two loops, pull that through, stick it on the needle. Need more yarn. Again, and there, see, this is where that little join was. Stick it between, pull through, stick on. Between, pull through, stick on. Between, pull through. Look, oh, there you go. See, look, there's the loop. I'm seeing the loop. That means that we need to make more yarn. So I'm going to, again, reach through that loop, grab the single strand, and pull that working yarn. And you can see, here's the working yarn, and I'm pulling and pulling. Oh, maybe it'll be better over there. So then we have, again, here's my loop way down here next to my working yarn. There's the loop I pulled it through. I'm gonna set up to hold it. And we gotta make sure we get all three. So there's all three of the strands that made up my most recent stitch. I'm going to put this in between, pull through, stick on. In between, pull through, stick on. Between, pull through, stick on. And I pulled out a bunch, so I should have enough. But you just add on, using that loopy technique. When you get to the point where you're close to this loop, you take that working yarn and you pull it through that loop and you just extend it out and you have more. So we only want to do a few stitches because I want you all to see. I'm going to cast on one more so you can see I'm putting my needle between the yarn, between the stitches underneath my left hand needle, pull through, stick on. Now we're just going to start knitting. This first row, as always, is a little fiddly. You got to make sure you have all three of those strands. Knit, knit. Oh, there's that loop. So I'm going to go ahead, open up that loop. Okay, it's not there. Open up that loop, grab that working yarn, pull it through, get a nice long chunk of it. See how it's coming off of the working ball? You're going to go back this way and then hold all three strands. See how you get the loops are together with the working strand beside it, which is why you get three. Going down back to here. And you just knit or purl or do whatever it is your pattern instructs you to do, but you're holding three strands of yarn at the same time, which means you're getting a considerably thicker, you're getting 3 times the thickness out of it. So let me get those back down there. So there we go. I'm going to turn it over, find my 3 strands again. There they are. You can see the loop is hanging out right there. I have all 3 strands. And we're just knitting like we normally knit. Is a no biggie. It's just really, it's like, what sorcery is this? How did this happen? It's amazing. So yeah, it's just like regular knitting. It's just as you knit along, you watch for that loop to pop up. I'm going to turn over because I hit the end of my row. Going to make another stitch. Oh, there's that loop. See, it just popped over my finger. I'm going to open up the loop. I'm using my other finger to help. Grab that working yarn, pull it through. So we're creating that loop, extending that loop. So we have 2 strands parallel, bring that working yarn down, and now we have, again, 3 strands that I can knit with. See? And again, we've got the loop over here, and we're just turning that 1 strand of yarn into a triple strand of yarn. So let's see, let's do some purling. See, it works exactly like you could do lace like this, you could do cables like this, you can do pretty much anything, because at this point, those 3 strands of yarn are, oop, there we go. See, the loop has popped up. So again, you get that loop, grab the working yarn through the center of it. Now I'm not pulling it out super long. When I was trying this out, what I did is I held my needles in one hand and started pulling in the other direction with my left hand and pulled it out till my arms were stretched completely, sort of in the I love you this much kind of way. And so I got a nice long thing. So I wasn't having to make new yarn as frequently as I am here. And look here, you just hit that. That is where one of the loop joins was in the previous row. It really is not particularly visible. So that is the basic technique. You might have to go back and re-watch this a couple times to really get a hang for it, but it is magical. Now, I want to show you a piece that I knit before. Oh, again. And here we go. Look at that. So that is this yarn. So that is fingering weight yarn. And it is at bulky gauge. Now, the first swatch I knit is here. I wanted to see, because I thought maybe it would help with breaking up variegated, and it did not. Because of the way you're doing the loops, you're still going to get some pooling. I'm not 100% sure I like it in variegated, but I wanted to give it a try. Like a more mildly variegated yarn might make me happier. Can't say I'm in love with how this came out, but I had no idea what weight this was really going to come out. So I started down here using a size 8, and it was coming out very dense, and I wasn't happy with it. So then I went up to a size 10, which is what you use for bulky, and I'm much happier. You can see how it's trapezoidal. See how much it's just, I like this a lot more. It's a lot nicer fabric. And so to decide what needle size I went up to, I was like, I'm really not liking this on the 8. So how can I decide what weight I'm really getting by tripling? So I used my handy dandy wraps per inch tool, and using the tripled up yarn, I did the wrapping. So I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's in the 8-ish range. So I'm getting in the range of 8 wraps per inch, which 8 wraps per inch is in the bulky range. So that is why I decided to go up to a 10. And I really like the way the 10 worked. I'll also note, and you can really see it, I did see this row here that's in the middle, that's a little short row, that's like all these stitches are like half the size of the stitches above and below. That was when I just, for giggles, tried it using my right hand. And you can definitely do this stranding the yarn in your left hand or your right hand, however you do it. Just watch for that loop to pop up. But you can see how bad my tension difference is between holding the yarn in my right hand and holding the yarn in my left hand. Things that I noted. You need to make sure to leave enough at the beginning when you're making your slip knot. You either need to weave all 3 of these in as if one, or you'll have to weave in 3 separate ends, up to you. And then when you're doing your bind off, you may have to make yarn in the middle of your bind off, but if you get to like the end, like you're close to the end, do not try to just squeak it out, because you need to have enough of all 3 strands on the once you cut it to weave in. But also, if you're right and you only need a few more stitches, don't pull out a whole boatload of new yarn, or else you're going to have way too much yarn to weave in. You'll just be wasting yarn, but it doesn't matter. It's better to have too much than too little. So, and I had to make it in this bind off. So you can totally make it. You can make the yarn at the beginning of the row. You can make it in the middle of the row. It doesn't matter. You can even see, I can show you in the middle of my cast on, you can see right there, that is where the join loop is, where you're manufacturing more yarn. So it really isn't particularly visible, and I think it looks fantastic. I really like it in this semi-solid. I think it'll work great in solids and mildly variegated yarns. I just not particularly happy with this. This is what I'm not caring for. When you have all the colors in the same stitch, it has this kind of almost marled effect. But if you like that effect, then it's great. To me, it's just a little busy, but definitely the 10 was where I needed to be. And again, if you're trying to do this to substitute in a pattern, you just need to swatch using this technique and see if you get gauge. If you don't get gauge, adjust your needle size accordingly.
Magic. It's magic, isn't it? Like sorcery. I don't know who came up with this, but thank you. And thank you to this lovely TikToker at Hooked Me for doing this TikTok and sending me down this road. It is super fun. I really adore how this came out. The silk made it super drapey. I mean, yeah, we're going to have more ends to weave in, but that is a small price to pay. So I really want to play with this technique. One thing I wanted to mention is, as we've established, this takes fingering weight. By tripling it, you end up with bulky, essentially the equivalent of bulky weight. But one thing is how do you know how much yarn you need? And essentially what you have to do is however much yardage you have in fingering weight, divide by 3. It's as easy as that. So your typical fingering weight skein is going to be around 400 yards. You divide by 3, you get 133.333333333. So you have roughly 133 yards of bulky. So you need to look at your bulky weight pattern if you're substituting in and do that math conversion. Now, this technique, as the lovely person said, will work on any weight yarn. So I'm guessing lace weight might get you up more into the, like if you do this with lace, you're going to get maybe into the DK or worsted range. I don't know. It'll need experimentation. If you do this with worsted, you're definitely going to get up into like something really jumbo. And I can't even imagine doing it with bulky. I don't think I have a needle that big, but it is a way to use this technique to use a single skein of yarn and do this manufacturing 3-stranding. And I think it's really exciting. So I hope you enjoyed this little experiment. I don't know that I can answer many more questions about this. Feel free to throw questions at me in the comments. It'll probably be stuff I haven't thought about, because literally from the time I watched that TikTok to now, it has been about 4 hours. So I've known about and understood this technique for for a grand total of 4 hours. So obviously there's going to be a lot more going on here, details, all kinds of things. We can explore it together. If anyone has experience with this technique, I would love to hear about it. And if you come across anything fun, please feel free to share it or bring it to my attention in the Watch Barbara Knit Facebook group. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Thank you so much.